Events occur every single day of our lives. Some are exciting, cultivating what becomes some of our happiest memories ever. While other events take us down a road of pain, darkness, and sheer shock, leaving us emotionally damaged and totally numb. Dr. Hadar Lubin, assistant clinical professor at Yale University, co-founded the Post-Traumatic Stress Center with clinical psychologist Dr. David Johnson in 1997.
We decided to actually open our own center where we can focus on trauma specifically, and started just the two of us here with just two little rooms, and gradually we increased and brought other people to work with us.
Located in New Haven, Connecticut, the Post-Traumatic Stress Center serves as a clinic that specializes in the evaluation, treatment, and training of people who have experienced a traumatic event. They represent an important resource in the community that sheds light on mental health and overcoming the fears that result from trauma.
I feel the building sway. Now is the time. I cannot wait for tomorrow again. So we're here to catch you as you fall.
We had the psychologist join us, and also a nurse practitioner to help me with the medical aspect of managing of these patients. And we also started a training program. So over the years, we expanded both our program and our reach, but also took over the entire building. The entire building is devoted for the Post-Traumatic Stress Center.
For me, and for all of the clinicians here, that we all have our own experience and our own stories and our own limits of what's distressing to us too. So we have to keep ourselves in balance so that we understand our stories and ourselves, and so we can relate as best as we can to serve our clients the best. Because it's difficult to receive the details and receive people's suffering day in and day out. So but that's the only way that we know that people are going to heal.
Being exposed to the horror of trauma vis-a-vis the work is, of course, it has its own toll and effect on the therapist as well. However, because we have an understanding and a sense of how to navigate through these traumatic experiences to help them, it makes you more comfortable in doing the work and more able to deal with the exposure to the traumatic experiences that they have suffered.
The staff deals with patients, both adults and children, who have suffered from abuse, neglect, discrimination, accidents, and so much more.
Sometimes they're crying in the office here, my office, the waiting room. And you can't help but feel bad, because you know that behind those crying, there's a big story, and they have it inside themselves, and only they know really what they're dealing with. So
the center teaches many exercises like the counting method, encouraging patients to break out of their mental entrapments.
Basically, the therapist counts from 1 to 100 as the patient recalls the traumatic event from the beginning to the end. So puts a holding boundary to the trauma, while the therapist's voice is coupled with the recollection of the trauma. And by doing so, it reduces, number one, the fear, and most importantly, the anxiety associated with recollection.
Drama therapist Mira Rosenberg uses posture, breathing, and yoga techniques to help with the healing process.
With trauma, the body becomes disengaged or isolated or completely cut off because of the experience of pain, suffering, and trauma that's felt in the body. So patients who have been hurt can get stuck or rigidified in a certain posture. So through my just one-on-one sessions, I'll use kind of techniques of inviting different ways of experimenting. For example, like, invite them to tell me the same part of the story with their shoulders back, for example, and just what the difference is when they feel just a movement in the body. Traumatic memories will pop in when you're just doing daily activities or in the grocery store, at school or whatever it is. So when you're learning techniques to ground down and to center in and breathe, just become aware of how the breath can calm you. You can have more control over memories when they pop in and not be flooded by flashbacks or traumatic re-experiencing of memories.
The staff makes a conscious effort to visit schools to extend their knowledge into the community and provide emotional support to students and their families. Dr. David Johnson speaks to students at Sacred Heart University about the Sandy Hook tragedy that occurred on December 14, 2012 in Newtown, Connecticut.
Clearly, walking into an elementary school that you have nothing to do with and killing a bunch of first graders seems about as deranged as you could imagine.
He discusses the possible causes that may have motivated 20-year-old Adam Lanza to take the lives of innocent children and faculty members.
Mr. Lanza probably was molested as a child, physically abused. That led him to being mentally ill, right? Which led to the violent act. That is, that something happened to him when he was in first grade that led to a whole kind of crazy ideas that the first grade and first grade teachers are terrible, whatever. He grows up, he becomes he loses it, and decides to go in and kill everyone in the first grade because he was bullied and teased in first grade. Another one says, no, he was mentally ill to begin with. He developed a mental illness, he was psychotic, he was crazy. We have the violent acts themselves. This was an act of violence. Think about it. How many people in this country are violent? Think about domestic violence. Think about bar fights. Does everyone who gets into a bar fight, are they mentally ill? So maybe it wasn't mental illness, maybe it was just violence. That led to psychological trauma, obviously in people, that led to mental illness. Still today, when the police pick up somebody who's running around the streets with a gun, they have to decide which brick building they're going to take him to prison or to the psychiatric hospital. And sometimes it's not clear.
There is one thing that's clear, and that is the purpose of the Post-Traumatic Stress Center. They focus on addressing a patient's internal feelings while offering them the support and treatment that they need.
Depending on when in life the trauma occurred or what ages, there's different symptoms that we see based on when the traumatic events occurred. And then, like I said, often it'll kind of ripple out into layers of years.
Sometimes people have to leave in an ambulance because their stress is so severe.
So you don't have to go far away to encounter really the darkness of life and the darkness of when the perpetrator is a person, of the evilness.
We're always focusing on what happened to them, so the traumatic event, as a way to alleviate the symptoms that they're experiencing in the present.